Right now, at this very moment, there is a government database sitting on a Washington state server that almost nobody in mainstream media is talking about. It is updated every single day. It is completely public, and what it contains should be the lead story in every business publication covering the Pacific Northwest. The number is 42,735. That is how many workers in Washington state have been handed layoff notices in the last 24 months. Not estimates, not projections. Documented. Legally required filings submitted by 149 companies across 195 separate events, running from May of 2024 straight through to the last week of April 2026. And the database is still being updated. The number is still climbing. This is the State's Insider. And this is what 42,735 people losing their jobs in 2 years actually looks like when you follow the data instead of the press releases. Before we go any further, subscribe to this channel right now if you want to keep getting the stories that the numbers tell but the headlines bury. Hit the like button. And here is your question for the comments. When you see a 2-year job loss trend, this large concentrated in one of America's wealthiest regions, do you think this is purely an AI and tech cycle story, or is something deeper happening in Washington? Drop your answer below. To understand what this dataset actually represents, you first need to understand what a WARN filing is. The Worker Adjustment and Retraining Notification Act is a federal law that requires large employers to give workers 60 days of advance notice before mass layoffs or facility closures. Washington state went further. On the 27th of July 2025, Washington's own mini-WARN law took effect, lowering the threshold so that employers with as few as 50 full-time workers must file before laying off significant portions of their workforce. The law was amended again in March of 2026 to tighten definitions further. What that means in practical terms is that Washington's WARN database is now one of the most detailed, real-time records of corporate job cuts in the entire country. Every filing is a legal document. Every number is verified. And the picture those documents paint over the last 24 months is not a picture of isolated turbulence. It is a picture of structural erosion. Here is what the data actually says. 195 filings in 2 years. 149 companies. 42,735 workers affected. The average filing covered 219 workers. The average notice period was 52 days. And within those 195 filings, there were 69 facility closures, not workforce reductions. Full shutdowns, alongside 126 layoff events. This is not a single company downsizing. This is a regional economy, processing a sustained wave of corporate contraction, event after event, quarter after quarter, with no sign that the filings are slowing down. The geographic pattern is not random. The layoffs are concentrated almost entirely in Seattle, Bellevue, and Redmond, the 3 cities that define the Puget Sound's technology corridor. That concentration tells you something important. This is not a broad Washington state economic problem. This is a tech corridor problem. And tech corridor problems in the era of AI-driven corporate restructuring have a specific character that is very different from the manufacturing job losses that defined previous economic disruptions. Now, follow the specific companies, because the names on these filings read like a who's who of the region's biggest employers. Amazon tops the list with 6 separate WARN filings in 24 months, covering 5,283 workers in Washington alone. 6 filings. That is not a restructuring. That is a sustained, multi-phase reduction of the company's Washington footprint across the very roles that built this region's identity as a technology hub, software development engineers, product managers, UX designers, program managers, and HR specialists spread across more than 30 Seattle and Bellevue office locations. Amazon CEO Andy Jassy was explicit about the direction. "We will need fewer people doing some of the jobs that are being done today," he told employees. And the WARN database has been documenting what that statement looks like in practice, one filing at a time. Amazon is not alone. Microsoft cut more than 15,000 workers globally in 2025, with a significant share of those cuts touching its Redmond headquarters. Meta filed WARN notices in Washington covering 331 workers, including 89 Inches Bellevue. T-Mobile, headquartered in Bellevue, disclosed 393 Washington layoffs in a single filing. Expedia notified the state of 162 layoffs, including nearly 50 software development roles and roughly 30 director-level positions. Each of these companies filed individually. Each filing had its own announcement, its own press statement, its own framing. But put them all together in the same database, and the pattern stops being a series of individual corporate decisions and starts being something else. It starts being a regional trend. And Washington ranked third in the entire country for job layoffs in January of 2026 alone. Third, not in a state with an industrial decline. Not in a region losing manufacturing jobs to overseas competition. In one of the wealthiest technology corridors on the planet. Now, here is the angle that the business press keeps framing as a simple tech cycle story, and why that framing misses the most important variable in the data. The companies laying off workers in Washington are not struggling companies. Amazon reported $21.2 billion in net income in the third quarter of 2025, up 38% year over year, $180 billion in revenue. AWS, generating $33 billion in a single quarter. These are not financially distressed organizations making desperate cuts to survive. These are highly profitable organizations making deliberate structural decisions about where their workforce should be, what roles AI can replace, and where the cost of retaining human capital is no longer justified by the return. And that last variable, the cost of retaining human capital in Washington, is where the policy environment becomes impossible to ignore. Washington's business and occupation tax is levied on gross revenue, not on profit. That means a company pays regardless of whether it is profitable. In a quarter where costs outpace earnings, Washington still collects from the top line. Add to that the new 9.9% income tax on high earners that Washington passed, which applies directly to the executive and engineering talent that forms the core of the tech workforce. Then layer on property taxes and the compliance costs of Washington's expanded mini-WARN law itself, which now requires 6-0 day notice filings for employers with as few as 50 workers. Every additional regulatory layer is a cost. Every cost that does not exist in Texas, Florida, or Tennessee is a reason to look at where the next facility gets built and where the next wave of hiring happens. The ecosystem damage underneath the headline number is where the real story lives, and it never makes the WARN database because it is not legally required to file. Every software engineer laid off from Amazon's South Lake Union campus represents a reduction in the foot traffic that sustains the restaurants, dry cleaners, coffee shops, and retail businesses built around that campus. Every director-level position eliminated at Expedia or T-Mobile is a salary that no longer flows into King County's tax base. Every facility closure, and there were 69 of them in this dataset, is a building that sits vacant, an address that no longer generates property tax revenue, a neighborhood that absorbs a loss quietly until the vacancy rate tells a story that is very difficult to reverse. And the brain drain dimension of this trend may be its most lasting consequence. The mid-level software engineer who just received a WARN notice is not going to wait for Washington to solve its structural cost problems. She is going to update her LinkedIn, talk to her network, and go where the companies that are hiring are located. Right now, those companies are increasingly in states that have spent a decade building the conditions to attract tech talent and the firms that employ it. 42,735 people, 149 companies, 195 legal filings submitted to a public database that updates every day. The number is still going up. This is not a tech cycle. This is a signal. And right now, Washington's political leadership does not have a clear answer for what comes after the filings stop accumulating and the trend has become permanent. This is the States Insider. Subscribe to this channel to keep following what the data actually says. Hit the like button to push this to more people who need to see it. And drop a comment below. When a region this wealthy loses 42,000 jobs in 24 months, and the database is still being updated, what does that tell you about where the next 2 years are heading? Stay informed, stay sharp, never stop following the money. I will see you in the next investigation.